This one is a recipe that I found online, and it is very, very simple, honestly. It just takes a bit of time, like everything worth doing in life. So the ingredients are very simple, like wheat berries, which I got here. This is how they look. They are the peeled berries inside the wheat, so it's much better. And I can find it at Kalustian's in New York, in Manhattan. It's called wheatberries, dzedzads. They also have the Armenian name under it, and it's great for keshkeg as well, and harissa, and of course Anoushabour, which literally translates to sweet soup. But it's not going to be a soup, it's going to be more like a pudding. So the way to do it is to measure 1 cup. Maybe I'll put the ingredients eventually later. One of the other ones did not have the ingredients, so sorry. So mine is going to have the ingredients. So it says 1 cup of that, soaked and brought to the boil, and then left overnight. So the next morning when I came, look what had happened to it. From this to this, okay? So you don't need to boil it or cook it for 1.5 hours, which is what it says in the recipe. I'm going to see if I can get away with doing it for less time. Maybe I'm wrong and we're going to end up with something totally different from a Anoushabour, Armenian soup pudding or sweet soup or whatever that is traditional for Christmas, especially for New Year's Eve, which is tonight. But it's cooking, it's boiling, it's cooking. It says on small fire, but you know, with the shortened attention span nowadays, we don't have time to stand here and, you know, stir it for 1.5 hours. I have other things to do with my time, so I'm putting it on high. Again, I am going all against the recipe here. The rest of the things are, can we see this? Yeah. Shredded almonds, which are going to add some very nice almondy, tangy flavor inside. Not tangy, but a nutty flavor inside. I'm also adding some pistachios, which my grandmother used to add. And I will add a berry blend, which has sweet and dried blend of cranberries, blueberries, and cherries with golden raisins. They also add cut pieces of apricots. This is a very, very important ingredient. However, the shop where I went to buy my apricots were from a country which I do not applaud or support their foreign policy, especially towards Armenians. So I decided to do without my apricots. When I get apricots from Armenia, then I can do it. So also there are sweet apple rings, which are going to be cut. I'm going to add some of them into the stew, the soup, and then use the rest as decoration. Now, the recipe also, I am like doing all sorts of infringements and different versions of this recipe, which is the fun part of life. What is the fun of doing? See, that's why I'm not a good baker, because for baking, you need to be to the T with the recipe. It's chemistry. If you're not exact with the measurements with baking, it doesn't work. So none of my baking attempts come out nice. So it says 2 cups of sugar, but I'm only adding 1 cup, and instead I am going to add pure Vermont maple syrup. Let's see what's going to happen. But the sugar is last. So now I am going to add all these nuts and bolts in here because they need to cook and become soft. They need to cook with the wheat berries so that they are not necessarily crunchy under your teeth, even though that could be nice. So there we go. I'm adding, ooh, it's so hot in here. I burnt my finger. So there you go. And I'm going to add some more of these, yeah, the mixed berries. Now, it's not mixed berries. It has cranberries, it has white raisins, black raisins, and it has sour cherries. So it's gonna be some soup, I tell you. All right, let this cook, and we'll come back to it shortly. After now letting it boil for a while, look what happens. It's really interesting because all these nuts and bolts, I'm calling it nuts and bolts, the nuts and the raisins and the cherries and the whatevers and the apples are mixing with the wheat berries, and they are all becoming softened. I already added a cup of sugar, but I tasted it while you were gone, and I thought, maybe not. I can improvise a little bit, but we shouldn't go that far. So I'm adding another half cup of sugar. It says in the recipe that you should boil it and wait until the very end, but I think the sugar is also serving as a, what can I call it? Like a joining, like a sort of a cementing factor. So we shouldn't do away with it. And I'm also adding a little bit more because, hey, it's called Anoushabour, which means sweet soup. We cannot be stingy on the sugar. And at the end of the day, it's New Year's Eve. Who cares about the kilos or the pounds? We're not going to think about that now. All right, so I'm back. And here is what we have. Like you see, the wheat berries have really expanded. The apples have floated, or they were already floating to the surface. Everything else is all soft and juicy and amazing, amazing. So now the moment of truth is when we have to plate all this. So I'm not gonna pour it because a disaster might happen, and this straub is very, very heavy. So I'm gonna use a ladle and pour my Anoushabour. Can we see this? What I am pouring layer by layer, because then people can see the texture of the Anoushabour and how it is coming along. It's a little juicy, like more like soupy, as abour indicates. But don't worry, because the moment this sets and sits in the fridge for a couple of hours, it's going to look absolutely divine. These apples, and arrange them like so on the surface as kind of decoration. And we got some dates, actually, because as I couldn't find the apricots, or I found but they were not the ones I wanted, so I can write the 2022 with the dates. Maybe I should put them in this way. That's 2, supposedly. So I'm going to use one of the apples, 20, and put another apple instead. I don't want to put another apple because that would bring us to 2020. We don't want to remember 2020. So I'm going to fit another 2 next to this 2 here. And hopefully it will be a much, much nicer year. And if you haven't already prepared or soaked your berries, it might be too late for tonight because they have to be soaked overnight. But don't worry about this, because this is a traditional Armenian pudding, or Noah's pudding, as they call it, because Noah was Armenian, in case you didn't know it. And his ark landed on Mount Ararat, which is the quintessential more Armenian mountain. It is Armenian. Nobody can say the opposite. Okay. All right. So there you go. 2022. And we have it. I also sprinkle a little bit of cinnamon. Basically, my grandma, the apples and cinnamon go very well together. So I'm going to sprinkle the cinnamons on top of the apples. Usually we used to cut out the date and it would be a lot whiter, the surface, because I put maple syrup, so it got darker. And with the cinnamon, we would sprinkle the date on top of the Anoushabour. There you go. Anoush Ellaa, Anoushabour tser. May 2022 be a wonderful year with lots of sweetness, good Anoushabour for you, health, good health most of all, and peace on earth, lots of love and understanding. Thank you all, and Anoush Ellaa. I'm going to put the details, the ingredients. It's very easy. And then you can mix and match, add your own stuff. Okay, bye.